Very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to yet another uLaw webinar. In today's topic, we're going to talk about the BX, CX, UX, and PX, which is really the branding experience, the customer experience, the user experience, and finally the product experience of a law firm or a legal firm. And how do you ensure that these components are always at a high at your law office? We're going to talk about what are these components, why are they important, and what steps you can take to ensure that they're at the highest levels so that everyone who has that experience with your legal firm or law firm understands it right from the get-go to the point where they're actually brand ambassadors, where they're actually referring clients to you and your service. Okay, so we're going to focus on these four components of your legal firm and your law office and understand how you can be the best at it. I do want to mention that this particular webinar is not accredited for CPD hours. Our CPD session would be on our Disbursements Demystified, the final Friday of every month. But this is going to be an interesting session, especially after following up on the brand experience webinar that we had recently conducted. So I would say this is almost a segue, if you will, of that particular webinar, but we're going to be talking about a few more components of that experience. Okay, so moving along, like every other uLaw webinar, this webinar also has an agenda. We're going to really cover the basic definition and the components of what the branding experience, customer experience, user experience, and product experience are, and how can you be cognitive in the overall branding, and how do you ensure you can automate and keep in mind the tools that you have in your arsenal today to ensure a consistent customer and user experience, and what that finally means to your end customer in terms of the product experience or the overall experience and the value that they have received out of working with your firm. Okay, so we're going to cover each of those components. We're going to talk about a few examples and try and relate it to how you can probably bring a very similar structure to your legal firm. So moving along, starting with really the brand experience, much has been discussed. In fact, we spent an entire webinar to talk about brand experience and why the whole components of the different components of brand. We spoke about a logo, maybe even a slogan that can really relate to your character as a company and what your company means and how easy it is to relate to your legal firm through that brand experience. So brand experience is really the visual representation in terms of the logo as well as the audible representation in terms of the slogan that you have for your brand. And it makes it easier for the customers, both prospective customers or ghost clients, if you will, as well as actual customers who retain you for your service, to be able to resonate with your firm's character, your firm's essence, and the service level quality that you offer as a brand, okay, or that you promise as a brand, okay? So it's really going to reflect on who you are. The areas of practice that you primarily focus on is something that many times gets reflected, especially for legal firms. If your focus is on, say, highway traffic POA, or if your firm focuses on family law, criminal law, many times that is reflected within that brand experience as well. That's where we talk about who you are, your values, but very importantly, your competency in a certain area of practice. Okay, so you want to ensure that you provide a very consistent brand experience to your customers. And we spoke about the different components, the different documents, ensuring that there's a brand experience across all of those different documents that you provide, how you could take that opportunity to provide a very automated as well as a consistent brand experience to your customers. So right from that first client intake form to a retainer letter to a receipt the payment receipt, trust receipt. So many of those documents that you generate out of your legal firm, the brand experience is something that can be a very consistent and a very meaningful and a powerful tool to reinforce your brand, your values, and what you bring to the table. Okay? And the final component that we discussed about a brand experience that I'd like to reiterate is really using the brand to imprint confidence in the service excellence that you and your team are about to deliver. So whether it's within the slogan or just within who you are as a company and the values that you provide, it would be a great experience for your customer if the brand can resonate the confidence that you are there to ensure the success of that customer. Okay? And it's also meaningful for prospective customers, either through referral or through a way of understanding who you are through marketing services that you provide using that brand experience, are able to feel comfortable and are able to take that leap of faith in retaining you for a particular service, legal service that they're looking for. So one of the first components that we want to talk about is really that brand. Take the time to think through what a nice logo for your legal firm could be, whether it's initials or whether it's a certain logo that you have in mind. Keep in mind slogans that you could come up with, just like we discussed, the Nike slogan of "Just Do It." Many other brand experiences, and we're going to talk about Walmart as a prime example in today's context of how they've taken these 4 different components, with branding being one of the most fundamental experiences of that company. Okay? So once you've established a brand, once you've established that logo, maybe a slogan, and you've started using it in your marketing materials, you've started to use it across all of those client touchpoint documents, next really comes is the customer experience. Okay? So the customer experience, if you were to think about it, it really starts right from the time of engagement and continues through the delivery of the final closing letter. Now, customer experience is something that you want to keep in mind and be serious about. That's something that you deliver, regardless of whether it's a customer who retains you or it's a customer who's just flirting with the idea of retaining you. So we talk about prospective customers, ghost clients, as well as clients that actually retain you. And that's truly the challenge. The professionalism is where you bring in the same experience, not necessarily knowing whether that person is going to retain you or not. So obviously, your character, your brand, and the customer experience has to go hand in hand, that even when you realize that this person is not going to retain you, you maintain the brand, you maintain the professionalism, and provide the same customer experience to that person, with the hope that if it's not now, that the customer is going to look at you the next time they're looking for a legal service, or actually may refer you to a friend of theirs to take advantage of the service you offer. Okay? So it is what is perceived by the customer with every in-person welcome. So we talk about different touch points. So if there's an office space that you provide for customers to walk into, right from that first welcome, in-person welcome, to, let's say, a phone conversation. Maybe that's, a first phone call that they make to your law firm to know more about the services that you offer and what is the process of them working with you. To the point where you actually have to provide them with a non-engagement letter, maybe, if that's the case, or if the client does retain you, the retainer letter and every document and consultation that you provide, ensuring that both you and the team, so it's very important that you make sure that every personnel in the company, in your law firm, in your legal firm, ensures the same level of customer experience that you provide to that customer. And now let's move along to a user experience. Now, it is a bit of a thin line between how you would think about customer experience and user experience. And an easy way that I would like, or we thought about at uLaw to differentiate that is, with regards to the user experience, is the different wow factor touch point experiences that your client receives through that engagement. Okay, and this is primarily received, I think a good component of those touch points are received by customers who retain you, because there's the opportunity for them to start receiving more touch points. It's not just a retainer letter, it's also the invoice, it's also the timely emails you send them, it's the professional way you conduct yourself, phone consultations, etc. So the different touch points. And the wow factors that you can provide through that user experience is many times is driven by certain self-serve capabilities. Okay, so you have got this customer so far, it's been a great customer experience. Now you want to take them through some wow factors through that service quality that you're offering them, and maybe self-serve is one of the key capabilities that you can provide them with the advent of technology and what they're used to today as a consumer in general. So let's take an example of, let's say, a self-serve portal that you offer them where they, or your client, he or she, or actually a company, can pay for your service at their own leisure, whether it's using a mobile phone or maybe it's using a web experience. That is something that you would consider as a user experience. Okay? It could also be the sense the team provides in how they work hard round the clock to deliver the service. So maybe there's an email that you send out at 11:30 at night, a way of not only showing customer experience, but a way of user experience that you're cognizant and you're working around the clock to deliver that service. So any touch point experience, especially if it involves a self-serve capability that can provide a bit of a wow factor to that user, is something that you truly want to keep in mind as a differentiator through this user experience. Okay, so we've kind of spoken briefly, trying to really define and paint this picture, if you will, of what a brand, customer, and a user experience is. Now comes the product experience. And as misleading as the term may be, now Gartner, which is one of the leading research firms in the world, talk about product experience really encompassing the overall experience and the outcome that a customer has received in working with you. Okay, so it's not just the BX, not just the customer, not just the user experience. At the end of the day, it's the bottom line. The bottom line is, in going through these different phases of experiences, was the final output of why I first engaged you successful? Was it meaningful? Okay, this is really the experience of your client, not only from the way you communicate with them, the actual outcomes that were achieved through that service. Okay, so if it's a family law, it's a dispute, at the end of the day, if you've been able to take them through that wonderful experiences, but also make sure that you've given them a fair deal of what they came to, that's really the outcome of what you set out to do. That's the overall product experience, and it's very critical, especially within a legal and a law firm, to be cognizant of that end product experience that you provide to your customers. So, obviously it's not as Boolean, but many times it is actually whether did you win the case for the client or not, did you provide customer surprises during the process? Did you talk about a flat rate opportunity, but then somehow surprise the client with really an interim bill that they did not expect? So it's the overall experience resulting in a successful outcome. It's what these 4 experiences provide back to your customer. Okay? And that is the most important thing. Now let's do a little bit of a deeper dive. So we've spoken a little bit about the definitions of these 4 different experiences that are meaningful and become an integral part of the service delivery that you offer as a legal firm. Now let's take a moment to deeper dive into it. A bit of a housekeeping is would appreciate if you kindly ask your questions through the chat window. I probably should have mentioned it earlier on. I apologize. Please use the chat window to ask your questions, and our support staff are available to answer them. Also, we do ask for you to participate through this learning experience with your feedback on the presentation, the topic, and anything else that we can do to make this a meaningful exercise for the community. So kindly do participate in the feedback form, and we'll do our best to stay prudent. Now let's take a look at some of the branding experience, a little bit of a deeper dive. Okay, so brand cognitively plays a huge role in motivating a client or a customer and retaining you in the first place. Okay, so it's that comeback moment. Either it's the colors, it's the logo, it's the slogan. Something has to really resonate with that brand, that experience that you provide as the first step in. Many times it's that wow factor that you can provide at each level, but starting with the brand experience, okay, that can really motivate your prospective clients to work with you. And it may be something that comes through even after it's a referral, right? So maybe a friend referred you, but as soon as they started to engage with your brand experience, they feel a lot more confident and a lot more comfortable with working with your firm. Now, the brand experience is something that you most definitely want to use across your marketing channels, right? With the advent of technology, you've got social and digital marketing experiences that you could provide to your clients about how they can discover you and what you have to offer. So we often talk about Facebook advertisements, we talk about LinkedIn, and maybe many other social engagement touch points where you can use that brand experience to market your service and what your firm can offer. But then let's say that particular prospective customer has become a customer. It's equally important that you have a consistent branding experience through each of those document touch points that he or she receives from your legal firm. Okay, so you want to ensure that it's the same brand. It's not the different logos and different documents. So you want to stay consistent, right from the client intake form to some of the examples that we've outlined here, retainer letters, invoices, receipts. These are all great opportunities of documents that can be branded. Okay, we look at some of the other documents like your law society audit reports and some of those financial documents that don't necessarily fall into place where they need to be branded. In fact, they probably shouldn't be. But then there are the other client touchpoint documents that are great candidates to be branded so that that brand experience is consistent. Okay? And one of the components, though today's presentation does not have a demonstration component to it, but it's key to keep in mind that practice management tools, legal accounting tools, document management tools are very essential and play a huge part in facilitating or helping automate and maintain that standard experience right through all of those documents. Okay? How easy would it be if you could use a practice management tool to automate that experience right through so you don't have to remind yourself of doing it every time? And the last most critical point, a very good BX most definitely translates to great referrals. Okay? And a good example of a brand experience would be the Starbucks. We talk about the logo. The logo by itself kind of really stands out, whether you're in, irrespective of which part of the globe you're in, that particular green symbol with the mermaid really resonates and it really talks to the band. It's a brand recognition, and it immediately cognitively helps your brain understand what you should expect as an experience if you walk into a Starbucks, right? So, a simple brand, a simple logo, and there's a great story to tell behind that logo as well. So you could most definitely, I would encourage you to Google the story behind the Starbucks logo, okay? And many of them don't even recognize that it's actually a mermaid. But that being said, let's start with that being kind of the brand experience, something that you can look at and it cognitively helps you understand what you can expect of that brand. Let's take a deeper dive into the next stage, which is really the customer experience. Okay, so we talk about the different touch points that your customer receives through that legal firm's experience of offering your service delivery. So that first phone call, many times it's a phone call, or if you have a website with a self-serve intake form, you want to ensure not just the customer experience, but the user experience being very important, especially if it's a self-serve. But that phone call, that first meeting, and every communication, whether it's with you or with others in your team, have to stay consistent and also have to keep in mind that experience that you can provide that exceeds the expectation of that customer. You also want to ensure that the customer is clear and confident and it doesn't feel too obligated or feel that he is in the right hands to be legally protected and he's going to win this case, or he or she is going to definitely have this case won through your representation. So the customer experience provides that ease of mind, if you will, through the different touch points. Now let's take a look at some of the examples. So for example, you want to make sure that a retainer letter, as branded as it can be, but at the same time is very clear in the information that is outlined in the document. So you want to make sure it's not a document that's misleading in the first paragraph. You don't want to say that we retain you on a flat rate engagement, and at the bottom rate talk about a per hour billable rate of $300 per hour, and that's very misleading. That's not a great customer experience, and it's not a consistent message that your brand leaves. So each document at a legal firm actually has different components that play a part. It could be a great branded experience, but it also has to be a great customer experience by being clear and providing detailed documentation and information about the work that's going to be accomplished, clear and self-explanatory invoices, and alongside making sure you have a bill of cost, statement of activities. And if that's something that you provide, even without the customer asking for it, that is a fantastic customer experience. That's really going or exceeding, and it's also talking to the professionalism that you have as a firm. Especially when it comes to trust money, and that's something that is always very sensitive in how it's being handled. So if you have a way of ensuring that your invoices highlight the retainer balance and trust, and maybe having a representation in the invoice which says paid, so that the customer, when he looks at it, right away knows that there is no action to be taken in that invoice and it's already been paid for, and you're just representing all the legal work for which you're going to move money from trust to general. So little things like that can most certainly go a long way in enhancing that customer experience. Again, practice management and especially legal accounting software play a very critical role, and when used right, can most certainly ensure that customer experience is something that you can design right from the get-go and help your firm automate that process right from the get-go to deliver that customer experience that's of utmost importance. Okay, so we've spoken about the same retainer letter as an example, whether it's the branding, but also a customer experience where that retainer letter really talks about the pertinent information and clear documentation of the work to be done. Now let's take that again. In the case of Starbucks, when you look at the customer experience, you've got a bit of a personalization, if you will, which really talks about the latte being a person's name, and it's personalized and it stays consistent, and it really resonates with the customer experience. Now let's move to the next experience, which is the user experience. So we spoke about an invoice. An invoice is a great example that allows for it to be branded, so the end customer knows that it's from your company or firm. The invoice has clear, outlined documentation of the work to be done. If there's trust involved, you outline the retainer balance and trust. So the customer experience of that invoice becomes that much more simple. You may want to provide that paid stamp that we spoke about to make that even better. But if you are to, let's say, include a wow factor that allows you to include a simple link that allows for the client to click on it, either using a mobile phone or using their laptop, to actually pay for that service at their own leisure, where they're not requested to send a check. Again, with the advent of technology, my favorite term, you are now able to provide that wow factor, which in a few years would just become a very standard feature, right? That is the nature of technology. And providing that in that same invoice is really the user experience. That user experience is something that you want to keep in mind. How can I impress on that customer beyond that customer experience to give them that wow factor and make it easier through the touch points they have and the experience that they provide as a user? So a way of self-serve payment is a great example. Another great example would be the integrated payment methods, regardless of whether it's trust or general. How do you accomplish that? That's a business automation opportunity that, again, takes advantage of practice management tools. So as much as we talk about these different experiences, a very subliminal point of view that we want to leave you today is the use of tools that can help you automate these factors by design, so that you can focus on certain things that legal accounting and practice management tools can't do for you. For example, legal research. How do I go and be that advocate that I am at court? How do I ensure that I get across the message clearly in the courtroom? So those are things that tools cannot do for you. So you want to use these tools to help automate what they can do very well naturally, so that you as the individual who's the legal professional are able to stick to what you do best, which really cannot be replaced by robots or automated tools, at least for the foreseeing future. We don't know what's going to happen later, but at least for now, a human is who is being, is the person who's representing at court, right? So you really want to capitalize on tools and ensure these experiences are consistent. And the final point is really you want to keep your focus on a user experience leaves the most long-lasting footprint of your business in the mind of your customer. Okay? Clarity and ease. Now let's talk about the overall product experience. So your invoices were on time, right? It was branded. It was consistent. It was everything that you had spoken about in your retainer letter. You've given them a wow factor of a user experience where they could actually pay for it in time. And now you've closed the file. And not have you done all of this, but through those different experiences, you have now made it very easy for your customer to deal with a legal firm. As apprehensive as commoners are to work with a legal firm, because it's always because of the situation. It's not like we're walking into a store to buy something. It's a situation that has led to a commoner walking into a legal firm. But through these overall experiences, if that end result, if that wow factor can move on to the next level of a sense of satisfaction and a sense of accomplishment of why they came to you in the first place, that's what the product experience talks about. It's a very satisfied customer who is now very confident about referring you to another friend, to another colleague. And when the product experience is a success, you can be rest assured that the brand, the customer experience, and the user experience were very consistent. Okay? At some point of time, those three components would have played a part in the overall success of the product experience. So it's a great law firm. They traditionally tend to win all cases, but man, it's sometimes a pain in the wrong place to be working with some of those people. That's not what you want. That's not the experience. They're exactly who they say they are in their brand. Okay, they work for you. They're very professional bunch of people. Customer experience is excellent. Oh man, they've got some amazing ways to engage you and work with you as a customer and wow you through the components they offer. Last but not the least, they actually get the work done, just as they said in their brand. That's the overall legal firm experience that you want to leave with those different, distinct experience definitions. Okay? And what does that leave then? A repeated customer experience. So this customer that has gone through those 4 levels of experiences, you can be rest assured it's going to come back to you. He's not only going to refer, he or she is not only going to refer you to a friend, a colleague, but they're actually going to come back if they actually need your service. So maybe they came to your firm for a dispute, maybe for small claims, but now they're actually opening up a software company and they actually need an intellectual property lawyer. And if that's something that you do, and if you've made sure through your brand experience that you've outlined that's something that you do offer, the chances of them coming back to you are very high. Okay, so the first 30-35 minutes now, what we've really covered is what are these components, how do you ensure the brand, customer, user, and the end product experience or the end result experience are consistent, and how do you ensure practice management tools and legal accounting tools and how they can help you automate that so that you are successful as a legal firm. So yeah, leaving with that Starbucks taste, it's the choice, it's the process, it's the quality, it's the satisfaction, and as I said, it's delivering through that process, through that manufacturing unit, if you will, having those brand ambassadors come out, right? So a good example is if you walk into a boardroom with a Starbucks coffee, many times you're motivating colleagues and others to actually go try Starbucks, right? The brand itself talks about it. Now, we wanted to use a very different example in illustrating what that can mean to, let's say, a location-based service. We wanted to look at the Walmart experience, and keep in mind, you're going to draw parallels as much as you can through this process. I don't intend to mean that a law firm is a retail store. All we're trying to highlight is the different components, the different brands and companies an organization provide, regardless of the vertical space that they deliver the service in. So Walmart obviously has their branding. So you look at Walmart, you've got that beautiful yellow star, save money, live better. Okay, that's one of their most updated slogans. I think they've always had many different things, but this is the most recent updated tagline, if you will, of Walmart. So one of the key components they talk about is you are now able to save money when you shop at Walmart. Okay, that's what they talk about. They're not saying you're gonna have a wonderful experience when you come to Walmart. That's a given. That's their customer experience, user experience, and that's a given. What they're talking about is you being able to save money, and that's the end goal that they're talking about in their tagline. Now comes the customer experience that you all experience when you walk into a Walmart store, or let's say a Walmart online store, right? And you may be a customer who actually intends on purchasing something. You may be a customer who's just window shopping, who's just shopping Walmart to really figure out, what the different products are out there, just to get a feel for it. and you may actually walk out of that store not buying anything. Same experience for a legal firm. Someone flirts with the idea of engaging you, but may get a lot of information from you, but I never retain you, right? It's the same analogy, if you will. But the customer experience that that individual faces is almost the same as a customer who's actually buying something. The big difference is the person who's buying something, the customer experience extends beyond shopping. It extends to the actual payment process. It extends to the actual bottom line of saving money when you bought something. And the user experience of how easy they have made for that customer to participate in that purchase is, so that person who's actually buying goes through that experience a little bit further than someone who just steps out after initial 5-minute walk. Okay? And when you talk about user experience, you've seen with Walmart that you can actually, really order for something online and then actually have a free pickup. That's a wow factor, right? For a Walmart store, that's one of the largest retailers to do it at a national level. That's a wow factor that they're offering their customers through that user experience. The user experience also extends to the online presence, which is a critical component, but they do offer it. They now offer online grocery shopping, at least select stores do, and they're actually extending that with a free delivery service. So they're now wowing that through that user experience of providing you with newer, innovative ways of shopping with Walmart. So these are the components that we spoke about at a legal firm that you may offer your customer to not only provide a seamless customer experience, but certain wow factors, which are touch points for the customers, whether they're self-serve primarily in nature, right? And what's the final product experience of having been at Walmart? It's the happiness of having saved money, knowing that you have saved money in shopping for these various different items, which if you perceivably shopped at a different store, you may have not received. You're always going to see a bottom line at Walmart which says you saved this much today, right? And then you obviously know that you're happy, that you've saved money, but through that experience of customer and user experience is what Walmart has taken you through as a customer. Almost the same analogy and same examples you can apply to your legal firm as to how you want to take your customers through that experience for your legal firm or your law firm. All right, so we want to quickly revisit those 4 different components, those 4 different experiences, and how do you ensure that it's at the highest level. Go over and revisit your office branding or the branding experience of the company, right? So if it's a legal firm, a law firm, if it's a space-based location, if this is, you want to look at every consistent branding that you can offer, right from your logo to colors. Maybe it's a color-themed chair that you have across your office. There are many components that can play a part. Training and personal management. So if it's not a one-stop shop, if it is a one-stop shop, then maybe you want to make sure that you're well-trained, well-read, know about what are the most latest things that are happening so that you come across very informative, but also provide training and personal management if your firm extends beyond you to an assistant or a colleague or a coworker or anyone else that's involved in that law firm. That's important because you all speak the same language, you all provide that same customer experience. At no point should a customer need to frown upon another individual and request that they only work with one legal partner. So it's important that you as a team can resonate that experience for your customer. Consider and start looking at tools, practice management tools, legal accounting tools like uLaw. How can you put to use to automate those different experiences in a very subliminal but yet automated way right across your legal firm or law firm. Use practice management and legal accounting to improve the different wow factors and interactions that you offer to your customers. So we spoke about a very simple example being a self-serve portal. And another great example is an automated email that you send your customers every time their retainer drops below a certain amount. That's it's a great wow factor, right? Instead of you having to call them and talk to them, it's a very simple but yet an innovative way in which you can provide that user experience. A simple button that they can then click to quickly top up that retainer. Great example. And ensure that you keep your law firm and keep yourself to do the best that you can every time win that case for them or win a fair deal for your customer or stick to what you as a brand represent and what you promised to begin with, okay? And use the automation and tools as appropriate and as possible so that you can now save that time to focus more on the real work that needs to get done to be successful as a legal firm and to provide that overall product experience and also save time for your family and friends, which is a very, very important component of a legal life, okay? So I hope through today's session, we were able to convey these 4 critical components and the experiences that you as a law office or a legal firm can provide to your customer. These are experiences that we've heard from some of the leading research firms such as Gartner and how overall the big brands, the conglomerates, as well as small, medium businesses focus on in delivering any service or product that they offer. And a law firm or legal firm should be no different. So these are the 4 critical components that we believe that if you focus on, it's going to make you a very successful law office, and referrals being one of the key lead generation or lead sources for the legal space. These are components of an experience that you can leave your customer with and be rest assured of that referral business to keep your business going. Okay. And for those who don't know who we are a very proud Canadian legal accounting and practice management software. And we highly encourage you to visit us at our website, uLawPractice.com. And if you would like to explore how we serve our clients and the automation we provide, we do provide a 30-day sign-up, a free trial, as easy as a Netflix. No hassle, 30-day sign-up. And we highly encourage you to give us a try. And now I'd like to open the floors with another 10 minutes remaining to kindly use the chat window to ask any questions that you may have so that we can answer that moving forward. And I believe that collaboration and using the discussion and Q&A is a much better means of learning, and it's a great complement to kind of almost the one-way speech that we provide traditionally. So we kindly request you to participate in the Q&A and ask your questions. Thank you very much. Okay, we have our first question for today. How do you differentiate if it's a thin line between user experience and customer experience when it comes to payment? Okay, that's a good question. Again, I want to highlight, when we spoke about those 2 different experiences, customer and user experience, we spoke about So let's take the example of the payment gateway. Now, the ability to provide an invoice, and I think I mentioned this during my presentation, the ability to actually provide a consistent invoice with the right information, with the branded experience, with the ability for ease of readability, ease of use, ease of retrievability is all part of that customer experience. Now, the ability for a client to actually pay for it right at the click of a button, right within that invoice, is something that you would consider as a user experience because it involves that client needing to have a touch point with that service, right? When you offer something as part of your legal firm where it's almost you delivering, so you delivered that invoice, that's part of the branding and customer experience. But then if you're involving your end customer, and actually they have a touch point in completing, let's say, a transaction, that every opportunity where they have a touch point is that user experience. So you want to make sure that when the client does click on that button, it's not a shabby looking UI. It's not something that does not work. It really, it does not end up in a blank page. And even if they have put in all their credit card information, there is no automated way of them knowing they've paid for it. So those are all part of the user experience when it comes to the end user, that is your client in this regard, having a touch point, having a relationship with them. I hope that answered that question. Question is, do you have more plans to uLaw for more customized invoices and document generation? Absolutely. We continue to invest as a company in adding more teams when it comes to invoices. We currently have close to about 15 different teams. And as part of the document generation, we do allow you to brand that entire document experience, but we definitely do continue to invest in providing more teams, if you will. But we'll be happy to have a quick dialogue to understand if there's anything else we can do over and above what we've planned for, and we most certainly can take that offline. But yes, most certainly we do have the plans, and we continue to invest in different teams. And as part of our document generation, we do allow you to upload your own logo and/or banner that can make that branding experience consistent through all of those documents that you deliver. And we do highly encourage that you use the link provided in the chat window. If you'd be kind enough to provide your feedback, because that would really motivate us to ensure that we're doing the right thing, but also look at things that we can do better. So are these presentations available? Yes, these presentations will be available on our YouTube channel, but we'll also send you a link to it. And is the branding experience presentation available? Absolutely. So if you did not participate in our branding experience webinar, please just search for it on YouTube. For all those who did attend the webinar, we did send out a link. But for some reason, if you missed it, we understand that. And we do have it available under our YouTube channels under webinars. This is an interesting question. Do you have any plans for generating podcasts? That is a very interesting question. It is something that we're talking about. But many times, I'll be honest, what happens is many of our customers actually listen to this entire YouTube video, if you will, when they're driving. That's the biggest feedback we've received is many times when it's a long drive, when the music is kind of mundane, they do switch to uLaw's YouTube channel and kind of listen to some of these webinars. But we are in discussion with our marketing team to put together a podcast library, which is a more compressed audio version of it. We just have to come up with the right topics, and we'll be happy if you can recommend a topic for a podcast or make some suggestions, but we definitely are looking at it. and we do thank you for suggesting it. Any more questions? We'll be happy to take it. Okay. I think this is a very interesting topic, and we'd love to get everyone's feedback, but it really talks about what happens if the legal firm does not win the case, where the product experience is lost, but all the other experience stayed consistent. Actually, that's a very good question, so thank you for that. That is really a good point. I mean, the bottom line, the end of the day situation is, you having to get the fair deal for your customer, but just like sport and many times, sometimes it happens that you may do everything right. Your branding is consistent, your customer experience and user experience was fantastic, but there are certain other components to it beyond practice management that relate to the success of a matter. But I think if you've consistently provided those three experiences and if you've been very genuine in how you come across as a firm, as an individual, the customer will look through that. Obviously, it is a better experience of having gone through a lost matter. And I think it's subjective to the area of practice too, right? So with each area of practice, that may differ, and the intensity of the value or the weightage that you provide to those factors vary based on the areas of practice. But I think customers will look through, and as long as you provide that BX, CX, and UX consistently, the PX is it's just a matter of it to happen or not. Because the opposite is what really would hurt, because maybe it's a successful, at the end of the day, the product experience was, you won the case, but there's no way, it took them through hell to win that case, and there's no way they're going to recommend that law firm or legal firm to a colleague or friend. I think that's a better story to tell and a story to learn from when it comes to these four components. Okay, so if there aren't any more questions, we again thank you for participating in our webinar today. I know you could have spent the last 45 minutes somewhere else. We sincerely thank you for being with us. Do send us any questions that you may have to support@uLawPractice.com. We'll be happy to address it in our next webinar. And thank you very much. Have a great weekend.